Login accepted.
Click that link. Thank you very much, Zoom. Greatly appreciate that. All right, so first of all, before we go ahead and get started, can I get a show of hands of people who are signed up for RvB? Okay, that's like less than half of the room. But hopefully we can encourage everybody to go ahead and sign up for RvB. But more on that a little bit later. Really? All right, as you guys can see from this calendar, today we're going to be talking about developing an RvB game plan. This Friday, we are going to be doing our RvB practice round where you will have a chance to take a look at something that's perhaps a little bit similar to the environment that you will be encountering on Saturday. I am once again asking you to please sign up for RvB. This is, if any of you guys have been here for a while, you've probably seen this image before. RvB is our red team, blue team competition that I will once again talk about a little bit more today. It will be this Saturday, November 16th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., including lunchtime, including a little bit of briefing, debriefing, so on and so forth. We are offering both in-person and remote options, so if you don't have the opportunity to be here in person, that is totally fine. Go ahead and sign up, and we'll be able to put you on through VPNs and whatever. The sign-up is due tonight. I cannot emphasize that enough. We will be sending out green team material. Green team. We'll be sending out the packets pretty soon. So if you guys are interested in participating in RvB, please sign up by tonight. You can either sign up by yourself if you would like to, try that out, or you could sign up, get placed into a random team of 4. That's always a good option to make friends. Or you can also sign up with a team of 4 if you have a team of 4. This is a really good way for you to hone your skills and to practice everything that we have taught you so far. So we highly recommend that you sign up for RvB and have a good time with us. So first of all, an introduction to myself for those of you who don't know who I am. My name is Clemence. My Discord tag is Entangled. I am a senior. I want to get out of here. I am the co-director of comps, and I have certifications in CompTIA Linux Plus and Security Plus. If you guys want some explanations to these images, I can answer questions at the end of the presentation. But first of all, let's take a look at everything we're covering today. What even is RvB? What does an RvB look like? What is checklisting? And what is scripting? We'll go through all of these a little bit while we're doing this. First of all, what is RvB? Red versus blue. For those of you who have played Halo in the past, you might be thinking about Halo instead of a Swift competition. But RvB is very simply put a blue teaming competition. It is your goal as a competitor to defend your boxes, your machines, your services from our marauding red team. And this year we're bringing back an old theme from 2022, RvB, which is a little bit of a play on the name. Basically, you guys are going to be the bee workers defending this hive against a new threat, which seems to be taking the shape of a bear this year. The goal is to defend yourself against a very, very buff red team who will leave you with no quarter and will probably end up murdering all your machines at the end. So what does an RvB exactly look like? What can you expect from this competition? And no, I don't need subtitles. Thank you very much, Google. The competition is approximately 5 hours altogether. It starts from 11 a.m. and it ends at 5 p.m. We do allow a little bit of time for people to come in because we start off with about 10 to 15 minutes of briefing. That's enough time for you to get settled, get your laptop set up, everything. Just make sure that all of your tech works. We have plenty of time for us to help you guys with your VPNs and whatnot in case those go down for some reason. We do offer a little bit of time in between for some lunch. And at the very end of the competition, we will offer some insight as to what the red team did, what was actually behind the scenes in the environment, and just kind of answer any general questions you guys might have about the competition. You guys will generally be given a 10 to 15 minute grace period in which red team is not allowed to do anything at all. This is probably going to be the most hectic and valuable part of the competition, because this is the time when you have to get in, you have to get familiar with the environment, and you have to understand exactly what's going on in order to try to block the red team out as much as possible. Because you can be sure that once that grace period ends, the red team is going to jump in like hyenas. Why am I hitting the red? Okay. Scoring points. This is a points-based competition. There are two ways to gain points. We have scored services and we have injects. Injects are our business tasks. I don't know why I'm going backwards. Injects are our business tasks. They're assigned by myself. And basically, these tasks force you to take your attention away from directly defending your environment. And you have to answer an annoying boss who probably asks you some stupid questions like, I don't know what Windows, I don't know what Linux is. Please explain to me the difference between, Apache 2 and Nginx. I don't know the difference. Please explain. These tasks, they may not seem like they're really worth it, but they're worth about 20% of your points. And in the past, I can definitively say that almost every single time, it is injects that sets apart the winning team from the losing team. So it is very important to make sure that you have people dedicated to that, or people who are doing that alongside of the other hectic stuff that will be going on. But the main point, the main way of gaining points is going to be through scored services. These scored services are the services that they're your critical services. They have to stay up. For example, you might see like SSH, HTTPS, Samba FTP, you name it. Typically, we will score check every 5 to 10 minutes. This is to make sure that you guys have a consistent amount of uptime, but at the same time, we're not constantly being like, are you up, are you up, are you up, are you up? Okay. So in order to pass a score check, you have to pass certain criteria. For example, if we are scoring a web server and we're scoring HTTPS, you must have port 443 open on whatever target box that is, and whatever service is running on that must be up and running with the appropriate data. These are worth about 80% of your points. So don't go and just do every single inject, because that won't win you the competition either. People generally do score a little bit more than 20% points in these competitions. The red and green teams, just to give it a little bit of explanation between the two. The red team is the adversary. They're hacking you. They're the ones trying to go in and trying to slow you down. They're trolling you. They're messing things up. They're just doing everything they can. And at the very end, their goal is to totally melt down your machines. And while we often say that RvB's goal is not necessarily for you guys to prevail against the red team, it is still a very good idea to try to do as much as you can to prevent them from getting as close to the goal as possible. RvB does have scale difficulty, which means that the red team will start out very easy, just a little bit of information gathering, maybe changing some of your graphics out with like an image of somebody holding 2 fingers up and saying nice creds. And sometimes, towards the very end, they might start deleting your services, start deleting very important files, replacing binaries, things like that. Green team. Green team is your support team. Green team will be there in case you need to have a box reset. Green team will be there just in case you have Wi-Fi trouble, VPN, anything like that. Green team is going to be there for you. Green team will also be giving you your injects. So if you guys need to respond to a green team member to finish an inject, get some points, then that's something you probably need to focus on a little bit. All right, here is a very, very, oh, yes, sir. Did I not talk about it? Okay. Here is a very, very quick sneak peek into your environment. Can anybody tell me what, whoopsies. Can anybody tell me what this red symbol is? That is incorrect. I thought I taught you better. Can anybody else tell me what this red symbol is? That is Debian. Yes, that is Debian. One of your boxes will be a Debian box, so you guys will have to go ahead and enjoy that. Can you guys tell me what any of the other 3 symbols are? I mean, 2 of these are kind of an easy giveaway. Any takers? Yes, sir. That is not Linux Mint, actually, although it does look incredibly like the Linux Mint symbol. Nice guess, nice guess. Actually, I think you guys are going to hate me after I tell you guys what the answer is. Anybody else want to guess? Come on, there's 2 really easy ones up there. There's 2 really, really easy ones. Okay, so for the people who can't read this one, it says Windows Server 2022. So does anybody want to guess what that one is going to be? Any guesses? Any guesses? There's basically no wrong answers here. No, no one? Okay. Windows Server 2022 is going to be one of the operating systems. Who would have guessed? But we actually have a little bit of a twist this year. Instead of just offering you your standard GUI and saying, hey guys, take care of this, we're actually going to be offering Server 2022 in the core format. Now, for those of you who don't know what the core format is, this is a text interface only version of Windows Server. Everything that you run will have to be in PowerShell. That doesn't sound like fun, does it? Don't worry, though. We made sure to put some of the most important services on it. And there's also, of course, always the option to go ahead and install GUI onto the core installation if you guys really, really have to have that GUI. Now we're down to the last two operating systems. Does anybody want to guess what the last two are? One of them is very, very, very prominently in white text. Zoom chat. Mandrill Linux, that is correct. Congratulations. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Congratulations to the chat for correctly getting Mandrill Linux. For those of you guys who don't know what Mandrill Linux is, it is a fully boxed and pre-packaged version of Arch Linux. Now, I can safely say that one of our developers here, who is currently sitting in the room, is not having fun with the box. So hopefully you guys will have more fun than him. Thank you, Bill. And the very last box that everybody's having trouble with is Windows Server 2019. We will have a very standard Windows Server 2019 installation there, and that'll be doing a couple of things in the background for you guys. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about checklisting. Checklisting may be one of the more important things you can do to prepare for an RvB. Now, just like its name suggests, a checklist is a list of things that you can do. And while this may not seem like it's that important, it's actually really critical to make sure that you cover all of your bases at the start of the competition. It is very easy to lose track of something that you have done in the past. When I did my first RvB, it was spring of 2022. I believe that I forgot my checklist at home. And I was like, OK, fine. I have other tools. I have everything in my brain. I am ready to go. I want you guys to guess one of the first things that I forgot to do. I forgot to change passwords. It's a little bit important to change your passwords, especially since Red Team probably knows your passwords. A checklist probably would have helped me remember to get that done. So making sure to have a checklist, even if it's a very basic one, just to keep track of everything that you need to do is incredibly important. It is your sole written source of information at the beginning of this competition. Here is a quick example of some things that you can put on your checklist. So for example, you can put inventory items. Inventorying is just the task of going through, checking all your systems, checking to see what's inside of it, what services are where, what's being scored where, when, so on and so forth. This is very useful because later on it means you can get your bearings like, OK, Red Team did a scramble. We need to, somehow they migrated all of our services from this box to the other box. Now we just need to move everything back and bam, everything's fixed. Hardening. Hardening is incredibly important because it means that makes it harder to enter. With hardening, you can remind yourself to close any extra entry points. You can change default passwords. You can just go through. You can remove things. Generally just close up all the holes, make it a little bit harder for Red Team to get in and mess with you. Software updates. It is incredibly common in these competitions for people to go ahead and put in some very old versions of software. These old versions of software typically have known CVEs, and these CVEs can then be used to exploit your systems. So you guys might want to upgrade your software, or change it to something that's a little bit better than what is currently there. And finally, last example here is user management. Not everybody in the system is going to be who they are. Not everybody in the system is supposed to be there, so you guys need to make sure to audit it, because if you have even one bad user, Red Team can still get in legitimately and then do privesc and everything like that, and eventually somehow troll you and cause you to rip your hair out because now Now, all of a sudden, your default terminal got changed from, what was it? I think it was changed from, oh, what was that one time? It was changed from Bash, and I think we changed it to PowerShell. So you had to do PowerShell in Linux. That was pretty funny. So here's a quick example of what not to put in a config. I mean, in a checklist, and that is your entire config. Now, you could put your entire /etc/vsftpd.conf file in here, but you're not really going to read that during a competition, right? You don't have time to read that during a competition. Red team is pounding on your door. You need to act quickly. So you're going to instead put very simple reminders. For example, you can put prevent root login sshd. Just based on this one line, can anybody tell me what that is telling you to do? Just prevent root login sshd, just like right there. Exactly. Or well, more like prevent somebody from logging in, but yeah, but basically. And the sshd there just basically tells me to go into the sshd config file in the ssh installation folder in /etc. Anything super detailed, again, you're not going to be able to read all of that. If you have the time to read that, you're either super cracked, in which case you're probably going to win, or it's not something that's necessarily worth it. And by the time you finish reading all of that, your red team's going to be through, and they're going to post an image laughing at you for reading everything instead. Here is an extremely basic and very overview kind of version of a checklist. First of all, identify your operating systems. I have technically told you exactly what operating systems you have, but what versions of these operating systems, what exact builds, what updates are installed, what exactly is on there. That's very important to identify. What services are there? Are the services that we tell you are going to be important the ones that are there? Is there anything else there that could be hiding or piggybacking on something else? Identifying any present users. Again, not everybody is supposed to be there, and not everybody is who they say they are. Change all passwords to supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I'm so proud of myself for getting that right the first time. Now, that's probably not the best password because, honestly, I don't want to type that out every single time I need to log in. But changing it to something a little bit more secure, or at least unknown, is probably a very good idea. Removing bad users again, demoting any bad admins, pretty important. Stopping any non-essential services. Maybe there's a listener going on in the background. Maybe there is a beacon somewhere. Just stopping anything that doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. Installing your firewall, blocking non-essential ports. This is a very, very crucial thing. I'm going to keep touching on this year because one of the most common things that people forget to do besides change passwords is to install even a basic firewall. Even a basic firewall will prevent access from almost every single port except the ports that you specify. And that does severely slow down red team. So please, please, please install or at least enable a firewall. And of course, don't delete system32. That's a really, really terrible idea. And now we're going to go into scripting. And I realize that I'm blowing through this really quick. Yes, sir. Yes, so by default, I believe most firewalls will just by default block everything. So you'd have to create new rules. You have to create new chains that basically say, hey, I want to allow these ports, these services through. And of course, if you want to set up something more complicated, like packet matching, things like that, you can go ahead and do that. But just from a very basic standpoint, just making sure to have that to filter out anything that's not even remotely supposed to be there, that's a good first step. Any other questions before I move on? Anybody in the Zoom chat? All right. Scripting. Scripting is a very good way to save time in these competitions, especially since at the beginning of the competition, everybody starts from the same background, and you can get yourself a step ahead just by executing scripts. Now, commonly in the gaming world, if you have like an AI versus a human player, the AI has something typically called infinite APM, which stands for infinite actions per minute. They can technically do anything as fast as the computer can run, which is obviously a lot faster than what you can do. I personally can type at about 104 words per minute, but even then, when I'm running a basic script, I'm about 10 minutes behind what the computer can automate. So it is very vital for you to run scripts in order to set yourself up for a little bit more success later down the line. Again, sequence of instructions for the computer to follow, and it's very important to use these for common tasks. You can set up something to do a little bit more complicated tasks, but if you're spending more time to just write these scripts, at that point, it is better for you to just try a couple more hack the boxes and just hone your skills that way. We're going to go into 3 scripting languages that can be used to create scripts for these competitions. First of all, we have Python. Python is currently the #1 programming language on GitHub, I believe. It is cross-platform, very human readable, very nice to use. I love this language. It's very common, has a lot of extra libraries that exist that you can use to your advantage. It is also very reliant on having a clean installation of Python. So if anything has been messed with the Python installation, your entire script can totally fail. And I've had this happen during a competition once. So that's why I had a backup script. But Python can be useful, but you would have to make sure that it runs properly in the first place. PowerShell. PowerShell is a Windows-based shell scripting language. It can also be installed on Linux, and it is incredibly powerful. It can do a lot of things, and it is incredibly extensible, which means you can write your own modules, you can plug those in, you can reference them, you can execute the commands in them, and you can do so much with PowerShell. It is a very, very useful tool, especially for automating tasks in Windows. You can create your entire firewall chains. You can set up entire services just from a couple chains of PowerShell commands. It does have a little bit of a learning curve, I will admit, but it is also fairly human readable. And once you get the knack of it, then PowerShell is a very, very useful language to have under your belt. Bash. Bash does for Linux what PowerShell does for Windows. It is your scripting command language. Everything that you type in a Bash terminal, you can write in a Bash script. So it requires almost 0 effort to move from a Bash terminal to a Bash script. Anything that you type in a Bash terminal, you can technically export that and turn that into a script, which is kind of cool. All your standard Linux commands, everything like that, you can just dump it in there. Works totally fine. The one thing that I do note with Bash is that it does have less programming features than other languages might have. You can have your basic flow control, some looping, variables here and there, but beyond that, it's a little bit more difficult to create something a little bit more object-oriented or even functional in Bash. Here are some things to try with scripting. Firewall setup, as I've mentioned over and over again. Firewall setup is something that does tend to take a little bit of time, but with a script, you can automate this pretty easily. Can anybody identify what the main firewall is for Windows server-based platforms? Anybody? Windows security, exactly. Windows security is built in, and it works pretty okay from what I remember. And there's plenty of PowerShell commands that you can run to just throw up a brand new protection for a port. For Linux, can anybody mention at least one of the firewalls that are available for Linux? UFW. UFW stands for Uncomplicated Firewall, and that is absolutely one very good option. UFW is built off of a more complicated lower level API called IP tables. So if you know IP tables, it's better to do IP tables directly. But if you don't know anything about firewalls and you just want to try it out on Linux, UFW does a pretty decent job of giving a good, basic, solid setup for your firewalls. Make sure to set up your precise rules. Don't just be like, hey, I want to allow anything that accepts this, because then you're opening yourself up to more points of entry. Instead, try to make sure that it comes from that the packet comes from where they say it comes from, that the packet is legitimate, blah blah blah, continuing all that stuff before it finally gets into the system. User management. You can remove anybody suspicious. What does the user ID 0 mean on Linux systems, for example? Hello, welcome in. Can anybody tell me what user ID 0 does on Linux? Did you raise your hand? Oh, okay. In the chat, we see root, and that is absolutely correct. Anybody with an ID of 0 will automatically have root access to all of your systems. All of your services and everything like that. So if you have somebody who is not the root user, for example, they could be called tour, or they could be, some kind of troll name. If somebody has a user ID of 0 and they're not supposed to be there, probably want to chuck them out of there. And you can pretty easily do this with the script. And finally, system audits. You can automate some things. There are some tools you can install into Linux that will do a full comprehensive security scan of your system. It'll identify any versions of software with known CVEs. Of course, you can also write your own. You can write your own to check for certain things. You can run routine checks to make sure that there are things that haven't been added since the last time you've checked, and so on and so forth. And honestly, I went through this a lot quicker than I probably should have. So with that, I guess I will go ahead and open the floor to any questions about RvB. I will answer almost any question about RvB. So if you're going to compete, then please go ahead and ask. Yes, sir. That's a very good question. So in the information packet that we'll be giving you, the briefing packet, it'll specifically list people who are supposed to be there and people are not, the services that will be scored, or at least the protocols that will be scored, and like just a very general overview of what you should expect. So based on that information, it's good to go through and match everything and see, is this person supposed to be here? Is this thing supposed to be here? If it is, great, keep it. If not, you check it out. Mm-hmm. Very good question. I'm assuming you're talking about for Linux. Okay, for Linux specifically, yes, you will have to install it through the terminal, and it's pretty similar to how you install almost any other form of software. For Debian-based systems, you would use the apt command, so apt install. For any Red Hat-based systems, you could use yum dnf. Those work. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir. Yes. That is a very good question. The 4 boxes in this environment will be accessible to every member of the team. So you can switch off between people. So for example, let's say you know a little bit of everything, and somebody struggling on another box can be like, hey, let me switch in, let me just try this out. Then you can just go in and say like, oh, you've been so focused on this, you actually didn't notice this thing that's right here. So then you can go in and do whatever you want with that. So it should be accessible to everybody in the team. Yes. So there's going to be challenges, of course. There's going to be manpower shortages, especially as some of the more lengthy injects come along. But it's important to make sure to have a good balance of focusing, making sure you're not overwhelming yourself, and just getting everything done as well as possible. Yes, sir. The briefing packet will be released either tonight or tomorrow, depending on when I get home and finish that. So does anybody have any further questions about RvB? Yes. Sorry? We want to make sure that you guys have enough time to go through and to do everything that you need. And 6 hours might sound like a lot of time, but I mean, at the beginning of the competition, it feels like it's the longest thing in the world. But by the end of the competition, you're going to feel like, I wish I had more hours to do things. It's just a way for us to make sure that you guys have ample time to do something, while also making sure that it's not too long and we don't keep you there literally all day. Does anybody have any? Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. I don't recall that at the moment, but the scoring engine details will be in the briefing packet. All right. Do we have anybody who's competed in a previous RvB here? Raise your hand if you've competed in a previous RvB. Okay, that's a small portion of us. Yes, sir. Can you please tell us your experience with RvB, just briefly? Yeah. Yes, sir. You look familiar. Oh yeah, good idea.
I think it provides really good hands-on experience. It's definitely not easy, but it gives it trains us to actually work through problem solving, defending the system, an actual pressured environment. So I think it's very enjoyable experience.
We have to add something. The 2022 one was really good because it had a lot of like in-person social engineering and like the physical environment was also a part of it as much as like as much as what you were doing on the computer, so it made a really interesting like multifaceted experience.
Thank you so much. Who else had their hand raised? Anybody else here? How about Madam President?
Oh,
How was your experience with RvB?
it was really fun. Actually, I think RvB helped me realize like everything I didn't know. And from there I was able to like better study and prepare myself for future stuff. It's also like pretty helpful for CCDC tryouts because it's kind of like the same thing.
Oh yeah. A lot of our devs are also on the CCDC team, so anything that they see on CCDC, they probably will bring to the RvB. So if you guys have encountered any particularly difficult environments in the past, you can blame CCDC. Kenneth, you want to say a couple words about RvB?
Well, with my experience, my first one was the 2022 as well. I think it was my only one. After that, I became a dev. But yeah, it was stressful. You're not gonna have a break, so time really is gonna fly.
We will still encourage breaks, even if you don't actually get one. That does remind me. We will have no form of social engineering whatsoever for this particular edition of RvB. So you do not have to worry about that this time. So don't worry, I won't be walking around with a different badge pretending to be, somebody else. Bill, you want to say a word or two?
So my first one was also fall 2022, and my only one. It was definitely overwhelming at first for beginners, but I would say just dug it out. I think one advice is organize your team, so have a role, do a checklist, and yeah, that's what we do at CCDC as well, a little more streamlined. But if you start organizing and doing to-do lists and checklists, then I think it'll go a long way.
Thank you so much. I forgot that I traumatized like a quarter of eBoard with fall 2022. Does anybody have any final questions about RvB before we go ahead and wrap up here for the day? Anybody whatsoever? Does anybody have any questions that are not related to RvB? Yes, sir.
Dr. infosec is
Oh no. Uh-oh.
it's a long story.
Okay, so So Sydney, Vinny, and I, we didn't have class